7 lessons only in that book. But the lessons are such, because they're in word form and because he's not teaching in front of a group, he's really designed the lessons carefully so that someone reading it can do them. And they're really nicely put together. There's a logic to them, even though there's a lot of commentary, which is very useful to read. The lessons are mostly accessible. A great selection of lessons. As I said earlier, the book was originally published in Hebrew in the late 60s and then translated into English. So that's available from Jenny through her shop. There's another book also called The Master Moves, which has also got a collection of around 12 lessons in it. And it's more of a transcription of a particular workshop that Feldenkrais gave at a place called the Man Ranch in California. The lessons in there are just as nice, but you have to kind of really read through everything. It's kind of like storybook form. Nice stories in there. And then you have a whole lot of manuals. And you'll see listed there are lessons from the Alexander Yanai. Alexander Yanai was the name of a particular street in Tel Aviv that Feldenkrais taught his awareness through movement classes over a period of something like 15 years to the public. And out of that, you can see there's about 550 lessons. Each lesson he taught it to 7 groups. First group, he would record the lesson. Next group, he'd play the recording of the lesson. He'd watch the group and he'd see what didn't work, and then he'd change the recording. Next group, he'd play the recording of the lesson again. He'd watch what works and didn't work. He'd change the recording 7 times. Yeah. So these are transcriptions from the Hebrew spoken word into English, and there's a whole heap of lessons in there. And what we'll be doing as we go on is pointing you towards particular lessons that will be supporting either what you're doing in here or your study as you go on to make that shift into becoming an ATM teacher. Now, as well as those, you have these other manuals from the S2M2d7e workshop, which was his first ever long workshop in the United States with a whole bunch of psychologists and Alexander teachers. There's 43 lessons in that. Another London workshop, another 30 lessons. The San Francisco evening classes, I think if you asked most practitioners, they'd tell you that those lessons in there are really nice to teach. So that's why they're also highlighted in red. Yeah. And then Toronto. Now, for those of you that much prefer learning the other way around, doing the lesson, listening to the tape, and then writing up notes, well, then you also have audio resources. Again, you've got the S2M2d7e workshop, which as a recording is actually a really nice set of lessons. He's not just teaching you the lessons, but he's giving you the commentary behind his method and all sorts of stuff. It's a really nice set. It's just been published by the International Feldenkrais Federation. And then as you can see there, there's another whole set of lessons from many different workshops. And again, the San Francisco evening classes are also available in audio form. No. The manual on the S2M2d7e workshop, unfortunately, isn't a transcript. It's notes taken by somebody at the workshop. They're called usually the Judith Stransky notes. So if you want the exact sort of delivery of the lesson, you need to go to their audios. Whereas the other notes are just kind of note form, this. So it really depends how you want to blend, and we'll give you recommendations as we go. So this is just an introduction into how much is actually out there. and this isn't meant to sound nostalgic or anything, but it is a very different field of work today than it was when those first graduates came out from Israel and the United States, because there was no material that was written up apart from the ATM book. Yeah, tricky stuff. So now you have materials to study so much that you go, where, what shall I start with? And that's hopefully where we'll help you, what to start with. And if you continue down this list here, you can see there's lots of audio resources. They're all Moshe Feldenkrais teaching in his, using his version of English. And you have to remember, English was one of the last languages he learned. So Russian, Yiddish, Hebrew, first languages. Second language, French. Third language, German. Fifth language was English. So his command of English wasn't is not the same as a native speaker. He is not necessarily using the refinement of words as a native speaker would use. So you have to take that into account. But nevertheless, there's still good lessons. Yeah. In Hebrew, yes, they'll probably be available from Israel. Yes, so various resources.
Through the Israeli Guild.
Yeah. So this is where sort of Jenny comes in, because Jenny has been associated with the IFF for International Feldenkrais Federation for a long time. And it's that particular branch of the worldwide Feldenkrais network that has been able to bring most of these materials back out from under the cellar. Yeah, to actually bring them out then. So the International Feldenkrais Federation, and then there's another big group called Feldenkrais Resources over in California. Those two places are the biggest locations for these kinds of resources. If we come back up here, and if you look at lessons from Alexander Yanai, 550, the beauty of those lessons is that they're all available online. And once we direct you to a particular lesson, you can purchase that single lesson for $1.75, is it? Yeah. So that's a really good way to go, rather than having to spend a lot of money on books and tapes. A lot of some of these tapes are in your divisional guild libraries, available for borrowing. But once again, yeah, I can see some shifting there. Come on. Come on.
This is an important time to briefly mention the fact that in Australia, we have the Australian Feldenkrais Guild, which is our professional body. They're the people who look after our professional interests and kind of help to keep us connected to each other and to the world. We will be inviting you to consider becoming a member of the Australian Feldenkrais Guild. But at this stage, our thinking is we'll do that next segment. That at this stage, you've kind of got enough to go on with the stuff from the training, and in a little while, you'll probably be ready to think about borrowing stuff from libraries or looking elsewhere and being involved with other things. So it's not a secret, but it's something that we will come to soon. And we'll talk about how the guild works, where we fit in relation to that, how that fits in relation to the international scene and so forth.
Yeah. So the purpose of this list is to alert you that, when it comes time to studying the lessons, for the sake of studying the lessons to teach them, that there's lots of resources that we can first of all direct you to, but then you can actually come to when you start to get interested in a particular line of lessons. So there's a lot of supporting material. Yeah. All right. This will be in your synopsis, so don't worry about that. And I label things in red that I consider would be the first place to visit. That's just my thing.
Actually, as well as we might make it a separate file that goes in the treasure chest.
Yeah, cool.
So you can come back and find it easily anytime.
Yep, all right. So there's the one thing. And then the next thing is, excuse my back. Just have to find it. Yeah. Yeah. So in the coming segments, you'll be forming little groups of what, three or four? Three, up to three, and offering a presentation. A presentation of the kind that I've been kind of offering you this time about the hip joint and various things like that, where you talk about a particular joint in the body and the movements that it allows. And this is just a list that I've put together for different groups to sign up to. Sometime today would be really nice. No later than tomorrow. That's about as stern as I'm going to get. Sometime today, no later than tomorrow, is to sign up to these. So let me clarify what some of these are. So the first one, you'd be looking at this articulation between the shoulder blade and the spine and how that comes into the clavicle, which is commonly known as the shoulder girdle. And then because the arm is so closely allied to that, you'd be looking at all of this region here. The movements that are possible there, as well as just an overview of the joints. So that's number one. Second one is this place where the ribs come back and meet into the spine. It's called the Costovertebral Joint. It's a really interesting area. A lot of us don't realize that the ribs do have their own independent motion back there, and that's the second one. The third one, it sounds really complex, but it's actually simpler than you think. The third one is looking at the discs, the joints between the big bodies of the spine, the discs, and then the other joint that a lot of people don't know about, the joints back here, which is the articular facet joints. That's the third one, and the kinds of movements that they allow, and that's fascinating because you start to realize not every part of the spine moves in the same way. Really fascinating stuff. And then the knee joint, well, do I have to say anything about that other than it's not really a hinge joint? Yeah. It's another fascinating area. Lots of movement possibilities here. And then finally, this little tricky area in here that keeps breaking on this skeleton. Yeah. So a lot of us know the elbow joint, but there's actually two joints in close proximity to each other that work in collaboration. The elbow joint and the other one, which is called the radio-ulnar joint here. So that would be the fifth topic. So you want to say something?
Yeah, so how that works is that each of the weeks that we're together, one of these groups will do a little presentation. Normally takes between 45 minutes and an hour. Your task would be to show us a little bit of the anatomy. Now we've got those wonderful, what's it called? Programs, things, which you'll be well and truly familiar with by then.
Yes.
So it's good to kind of have a look at what the joint looks like, maybe have a look at the skeleton, maybe do something that we sense it in ourselves or on each other. But it's an opportunity to make up a little kind of set of activities that help the rest of us get a clearer understanding of how each of those joints work. So, process. If you have a passion for one of those, go and stand by the chart and shout. Anybody else want to do the whatever? And the first two people to come and stand beside you, you can write your names in the box. If you think, I would really like a chance to do a little project with a couple of other people, find your people, and then work out which joint's left and go and write your name in that box. So that's the piece of paper on the wall there. 3 people Max per joint. Now we've only put up 5, so that's only about half of you will get to put your names down at the moment. By January,
and then we'll put up some more.
We'll have the next set of options. It is actually.
Oh, sorry, that's not the corrected version.
Don't be confused. It is September. Spring. Sorry?
Thank you.
You'll present when you're here, but yeah, you'll get together and chat to each other online, or if it happens to be people that you live near, you could get together. Or if you really can't do any of that, then you go for a 2nd or 3rd week option and you do it at lunchtimes when you get here. Okay?
Yep.
No, we'll put up another list of joints in January and get some more people. So only 15 of you can get on the list at the moment.
Yeah.
But so we will encourage you all to have a turn at some stage.
I like that. Enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm.
Cool. So just to let you know, there will be some guidelines for you.
Yes.
Yep. Just we'll write up some guidelines. They won't be heavy-duty guidelines. More or less, it'll be telling you what you don't have to do. Like, you don't have to do the full surgeon's course on the intervertebral joints and facet joints. Yeah. So that's the kind of guideline.
As relevant to Feldenkrais practitioners.
So it looks like it's got a life of its own. We'll let it run.
For a couple of minutes. Yeah, just for the minute. We'll come back. Oh, all right. Yeah, okay.
I'm coming back.
You're coming back?
Yes. Because I didn't do anything there.
Yes, you can, but you might find that it's filled up at this time.
In January, I'm